citizen says to Z-Man, "I want to change, Z-Man, but I can't seem to get started." Z-Man says, "Sounds like you've hit bottom, friend. You've already taken the first crucial step by admitting you have a problem." The confused citizen says, sigh, "I just let one logical thought follow the next." Z-Man says, "Okay, here's what you do. Imagine Donald Trump's hair. Now visualize the Office of Homeland Security. Now for the tricky part. Appoint Donald Trump's hair to head the Office of Homeland Security." The citizen says, I did it. Thank you, man of zeal." The last one is called Detergent Message. Z-Man's compassion for his fellow human knows no bounds. The confused citizen here is saying, my head, it hurts so much from trying to follow your meaningless drivel or wisdom." Z-Man says, "Republicans and meat, friend. It's all Republicans and meat." And he turns to the audience and says, "Well, my work is done. Perhaps one day folks will be able to appreciate the random insanity of everyday life without the help of my amazing superpowers." And he flies off holding a little tiny washing machine, and he says, "In the meantime, whenever a pipe fitter in Cleveland or an oral surgeon in Osaka cries out in anguish, I'll be there to remind them that laundry is the fifth dimension." I came to comics from a fine arts background. From my college days in New York in the mid-60s until I started doing comics seriously in 1969, I basically thought of myself as a struggling painter. I think I had fantasies I was either Vincent van Gogh or Jackson Pollock or something. And I just figured I was waiting to be discovered and given the accolades and the big bucks I so richly deserved. Which may explain my tendency to drag the art world into my strips once in a while. Here's one from 1991. First panel is a parody of Magritte painting, and he's saying, "What's all this controversy over high art and low art?" And the second panel, a Picasso woman says, "The distinction has become academic, n'est-ce pas?" And the third panel, a Walter Keane big-eyed little girl says, "Just style for a living." The last panel, Sluggo says, "Art is information." Here's another done 10 years later, riffing on the beautiful work of the suburban mall artist Thomas Kincaid. The first panel, Zippy is very happy and he's showing something to Griffey. "Griffey, look! I just bought this hand-retouched canvas lithograph at the mall." He looks skeptically up from this book. I think it's called Japanese Manhole Cover Art. Griffey looks at him and says, "Not one of those garden cottage things." And Zippy says, "It's almost real. He's the painter of light. He evokes feelings of a simpler mind. Plus, there's a bit of the artist's DNA in the signature." Looking increasingly disturbed, "Oh man, I've never seen anything so cloying. It looks like it came from some cheesy thrift shop." Zippy goes on, "Look closer. It's all about love and family and nostalgia. It gives me a warm and fuzzy glow of..." Griffey interrupts, "Oh geez, it's starting to evoke a glow inside me too, of nausea." The last panel says later. Griffey says, "Gee, Zippy, I'm sorry, I upchucked on your walk-alike." To which Zippy says, "That's okay, Griffey. It blends right into the golden tones of the sunset. Plus, now it has a little of your DNA." Here's my cover of my 1990 Zippy art calendar, and the apotheosis of my melding of art and comics here. Zippy as Ingres Odalisque. You can also see the pinhead version of Picasso's Demoiselle d'Avignon at the far right. There's a page on the calendar. It's a rare Greek vase of the obscure Zipponian era. We know very little about this ancient culture, except that they appear to be devoted to shopping, bowling, and front-loading whirlpool washes. Here's Zippy's, from the same calendar, suburbanized version of Picasso's Spanish Civil War masterpiece, Guernica. Oh, the horror of the backyard barbecue. It's done in the bland 50s advertising style of illustrator Roy Doty, one of my favorites from my New York childhood. He did loads of this stuff in ads in the New York subways. Now for a brief look back at Zippy's tragic brush with Hollywood. This is one of my souvenirs from the days back in the 80s and 90s when I seriously thought a Zippy movie would soon burst onto the silver screen of your local multiplex. This particular piece of art was done by an artist, the producer at the time, hired for a 2-page spread in Variety. It's actually appeared in Variety, the weekly color Variety. He did that in order to create buzz and to raise money. I remember the ad included a line in Japanese at the bottom that read, "Are we having financing yet?" At one point the project was actually in development with Brandon Tartikoff at NBC Films. At another point it was optioned by the producer who did the first Pee Wee Herman film. I wrote 9 or 10 drafts of the screenplay with my wife, cartoonist Diane Newman, and you can see a lot of this stuff on the Zippy website as well. Although I guess you could have to say I was pretty depressed at the time that nothing ever materialized from all this work. I do value the whole experience, though, I have to admit. It was great fodder for Zippy strip material. This one's a souvenir of the many years after the movie project died, fruitlessly trying to make an animated Zippy TV series for adults. We actually had a deal with Showtime. We got as far as scripts. We had 3 scripts green lighted and ready to go. But at one time they started, at one point, even at that late stage, they started saying, "Are you sure maybe we shouldn't be doing this for kids instead of adults?" This strip concerns my ultimate commercial success nightmare, a Zippy cartoon for kids. It's called Turn On, Tune In, Gross Out. First panel, these are Griffith and Zippy talking. Griffith says, "Oh, now we've been transmogrified into repulsoid animated kids' cartoons." And Zippy says, "Every morning is Saturday morning." The next panel, the cartoonized Griffith says, "We have that impersonal, non-specific look parents interpret as safe." Zippy says, "We're post-Disney and pre-Soul." The last panel there, the focus is on their feet. And Griffith says, "We represent everything that's soulless and hateful in American pop culture." Zippy says, "We betrayed our roots and insulted kids' imaginations at the same time." There's a little text at the bottom pointing to those awful feet. The last panel, Griffith says, "We've been neutered, bottom line, and sucked dry of all offending traits." Zippy holds a gun to his head in the last panel and says, "Yeah, I'd blow my brains out if I had any." Exactly what I would have done. Here's another bizarre showbiz Zippy spinoff that thankfully never got beyond the planning stages. I don't know if you can see this, it's a little fuzzy, but this is an artist's conception of the proposed Kings Row area in the Universal Studio theme park in Orlando, Florida. As I mentioned, Zippy is syndicated to newspapers by King Features, thus the name Kings Row. The idea was to showcase the different King Features comic characters in a little winding lane, all leading to something called Popeye Island. The entire purpose of it was to buy stuff along the way. If you look really close, you can see Dennis the Menace on the left, and Mandrake the Magician behind him, Dagwood way in the back, and on the right, just behind Hagar the Horrible, is the proposed Zippy Pavilion, believe it or not. And if you look right in the center of the painting, you can spot a so-called walk-around guy in a big head Zippy costume, looking just a bit threatening in a kind of Frankenstein monster pose. And I think if you look really, really close, you can actually see the fear in the kids' faces as they recoil in horror and confusion. This was a genuine what were they thinking moment in Zippy's illustrious career. Everyone's heard the phrase, "Are we having fun yet?" You see it everywhere from new car ad campaigns to fast food placemats to Garfield t-shirts. That's the one that pisses me off the most. But